guys, thank you so much for showing up to episode 2 of the Lead Gen Underground. It is me, Josh, and I have Mason with me. Mason is in South Carolina. What part of South Carolina are you in?
Greenville.
Greenville. You got a nice southern accent there. You sound very friendly, and you sound very knowledgeable, so let's get this bitch rolling. So we're here to talk about data today, everything on how we're using it, how we're scrubbing it, how we're deploying it, stacking it, all that kind of stuff. There's so many different terms thrown around today, right, on things that you can do with lead gen and then things you can do with data. There's many stackers out there. There are many different lead gen channels in ways you can deploy that data and go out and talk to people. So let's get it kicked off, Mason. Talk about just, in general, any opinions you got on data, how people are using it right, how people are using it wrong.
I think the first thing is trying to explain it of saturation, and it starts out by looking at everybody generates county data, and I like to look at it or start the conversation with just a zip code to let people help understand it, that there are only X amount of properties. So for example, a zip code may have 50,000 properties. So if you're buying a 10,000 property list every month, eventually you already have all of the data. So calling that the core list, stacking comes in naturally because if you're skip tracing the data, you already have it. Now you're just increasing what we're calling a cell score or a tag score. And then from that, if you're good at list building, other people are marketing to those people also, so they sell. And the cost to send direct mail and RVM is somewhere between $5 and $6 per lead or prospect per year. So by polishing the list or scrubbing it, just meaning removing the solds, it just made sense.
And so when you talk about $5 or $6 per prospect per year, tell me what kind of frequency that includes, because you talked about mail and RVM. Is that weekly, monthly? What do you do there?
So a typical RVM, the campaigns that we run are 3 weeks. So instead of like just dropping 50,000 voicemails today, it would be, a traditional skip trace has at least 3 phone numbers. So one phone number drops week 1, the second number drops week 2, and the third drops week 3. That's one cycle. So then we work for a year so that we allow the people to call back, but we're sending them different messages, different ethnic people leaving the messages, and from different phone numbers. So it kind of creates a little feeding frenzy on the sellers.
All right, so let's talk about the specifics of that, because I've dropped a fair amount of RVM in my day. Within a lot of people that I talk to, and that's one thing that I've gone back and revamped recently is when we're pulling and when we're skip tracing data and we're getting anywhere from 3 to 6 numbers across. Before I was just taking all of those lines and then putting in one big column into one big single file format and then blasting it out. And I know that's not the best way to do it. So actually my wife and partner just took over this part of the business, setting up all the marketing campaigns so I can focus on sales. However, she's going with just the first number just to start testing that out. But I think using 1, 2, and 3 across week 1, 2, and 3 is really smart. Are you dropping the same message? 1, 2, and 3?
No, all different messages. So our system's set up so that you load in 6 voicemails on day 1. And we buy local phone numbers to match up with that. So phone 1 will get those 6 messages in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on week 1, week 4, week 7, week whatever, to just carry it on out, gets message 1, 2, 3, 4. If they call back, they go into your Podio, right? I mean, everybody has some kind of, so we just forward it to you press 1 to get removed from the list. If they're on there 10 seconds, we remove them from our system. We can tie into Podio and bring all your Podio leads in and match it against it so it scrubs. So basically we create a blacklist, if that makes sense, using your CRM, which are clients you're already talking to because they move over into your prospecting, your lead follow-up. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. You said something about 6 voicemails in a day. Are you dropping 6 voicemails to one person in a day?
No, 6 voicemails are loaded into the system.
Got it, across the cycle.
Yes. So phone 1 would get message 1. And then a week later, phone 2 would get message 2. Does
Got
that
it.
make sense?
Yes.
So they all roll through, so you get 18 messages every 3 cycles. So I guess lead gen to me is a whole lot different than it seems like a lot of other people are looking at it. That you buy a list and it's hot. And it seems that every house we ever purchased, it was just being in front of that person when they're ready to sell.
Yeah.
So by being able to push out a long campaign that's basically self-cleaning means you can stay in touch with those people and don't have to worry about, a VA that quits on you or getting abducted by aliens and just ghosting. So in doing that, you have a large amount of marketing that's going out automatically, and your phone calls coming in are now steady so that you can spend more time talking to those people as they call in.
That's really smart. I think that's a really good point that you just made there. It took me a lot of conversations and a long time to realize that no matter what list you have, there's going to be some low-hanging fruit on that. You get probate, you get fire damage, foreclosure, whatever it may be. There's going to be some low-hanging fruit there. But in every single list, I think universally across the board, to really get consistent deals, you have to run into that person's timing bubble.
Yeah.
So no matter what motivation they have, if they're not ready to sell, or if it's not the right time, or they change their mind, or whatever it may be, they have a specific timing bubble that you have to run into. Sometimes it's by coincidence, sometimes it's by list, sometimes it's really dialed in like it seems like you have here. So I think that's really smart how you're running across different numbers with different messages. So let's just say phone number 1, we're talking about RVM, guys. With phone number 1, they're going to get a message every 3 weeks, I think he says, or week 1 and then week 4.
Yes.
Right, and then every the same weeks after, every 3 weeks after that. Or that phone 1, are they getting the same voice and the same person with a different just message across that?
It's up to you, however you upload it.
Got it.
So what we found is whenever somebody would get one phone number and send 10 million texts from it, it gets banned.
Yeah.
So we send a new phone number for each message, so there's no way for them to block, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's wild. Okay, I had never thought of that actually before.
Yes.
So I just went and did a 3-day boot camp with Rafael Vargas not too long ago, and it's really interesting. He uses Roar, which I don't use, but I found it really interesting to see what he did. And so basically all of his RVM per county, per list is going out with one number. So he'll just do like Maricopa County, August probate. And then he'll send over and over again, like every week or 2 weeks, but then it's all from one number. And then the next month it'll be a different number. And his basic process was basically sending out that ring list. And then if you listen to the voicemail, the person who's talking is leaving a different number than they're calling from.
Right.
Saying, call me back at this number. And so you're not calling that number unless you listen to that message and presumably have some sort of interest.
Yeah, I like it.
If
so
you
we have people that use that. You upload your own voicemail so you can put it out any which way you want.
Yeah. But then he did, if obviously if you didn't listen to that voicemail and you just called back to the number, right? It was a missed call and you called back, then you have to listen to this long form voicemail through the IVR menu. Versus if you're calling back that number that's stated on the voicemail, it goes live to the call center, to his call floor, his sales floor, and they pick that back up.
I like it.
Really interesting.
Yeah, for us on the tracking side, it was the most difficult because we play long minutes. Basically, we're holding the phone number. That way we can control the data that comes back on it and build and manipulate it to trigger other, a whole lot more complicated marketing like the direct mail and stuff. So we were trying to keep it down at 2 cents, but by the time we are buying minutes and phone numbers for each of these RVMs being forwarded to client's call rail, we had to bump it up to 3 cents. So we charge 3 cents per RVM to fully automate that process, to make it as short as I can.
Got it. That's really cool. Okay. So that's a bit about the mechanics. We just went pretty deep there into that. Have you seen any sort of messaging list or any other kind of small tactic that has made 2x or more difference really in your results?
Starting from the beginning is coming up with a core list that's, I guess most people would either call that tax delinquent or equity. So taking those two and finding out how long the people hold it, like how long the last sale was, and then anything that can stack on top of those houses seems to be the most targeted.
Okay. Tax delinquent or then some big equity.
Yes. So
Okay.
like, you know, I mean, we run vacancy on all of our data as it comes in also. And vacancy can tell you that the house recently sold. You don't know until you pull a sale date on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
when somebody has an equity list that they had from a year ago, we don't know how many of those houses sold. I mean, does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, man, I posted in a Facebook group and it was just saying that vacancy, and we pulled some sale dates and you see that 50% of the people had already sold. You know, the sale of the house was in the last month or two. So for a year campaign, that's rough. I'm not answering your question, I can tell.
No, that's okay. I didn't know if there was anything right off the top of your head that was, you know, that made a real big result. For instance, for us, I don't know any list with RVM that made a bigger difference because the way that I was grouping the numbers, basically making one long list. I wasn't really uploading by list.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it was just a giant list that I was uploading with that message. That's just for the lead generation side. I also use it for follow-up and beast mode, obviously.
Right.
I don't have any list that I don't think that outperforms any other. But in terms of messages, the one that always did the best for me was just something basically like, it would be my wife reading it. So it's in a female voice, but it was just like, hey, it's Marianne. So sorry that I missed you. I just wanted to follow back up with a call because I had a little note in my calendar. I was supposed to follow back up with you about the house and the offer we talked about. And to be perfectly honest, my assistant messed a few things up. And I just didn't want you to think I forgot about you. I think I was supposed to call you a while ago, and I didn't want you to think I forgot about you. So if you're still thinking about selling the house or you wanted to get an offer, give me a call back. And that one seemed to work really well. And I knew it was going to work well because I would have people call me back and just say, hey, I don't have a house for sale at all, but you must have the wrong number. And I didn't want you like getting anxious about it. I wanted to call you back and let you know. And I was like, man, I hit that thing pretty well if it resonates with people that well.
Yeah.
All right. So talk to me a little bit about, this is something I'm big on. Talk to me about a past mistake or two that you might have made with RVM or with data, and then you corrected it. And now you're like, oh shit, way better.
Let me think. We had to put a safety on it because we had somebody try to send 80,000 RVMs yesterday, accidentally.
Okay.
Put just trying to send a small batch and they sent a big one. So safeties or something that we just started adding. I don't know if I'm answering the type of questions you're asking for.
No, that's all good.
With the messages, people do all kinds of different ones. You have 6 so that you can talk about the same as the misleading or the misdirection of, hey, I messed it up, all the way to, hey, if you're willing to sell or whatever we buy houses. Those get the worst, but being in front of the people throughout the long period of time is where we're seeing, constantly contacting. So the biggest change out of the whole process is seeing that only 40 or 50% of an entire list or data set has mobiles.
Yeah.
So if anybody on here has a service that does something with mobile numbers, I'd like to talk to them because we have a need for that.
That was something that I've been talking with a few people about lately, and it's just with, whenever you pull a giant list, we're getting between 36 and 40% overall of that is mobiles.
Yeah.
40% of the overall prospects have mobiles, I should say.
Right. All right, let me ask one question to help verify your data. Are you getting more than 3 phone numbers?
Usually.
Okay. If there's anything past that 3rd number, is 100% not the owner. So now you're talking friends and family, which friends and family, no matter who you talk to, is the least accurate data. And the reason it works is because wrong numbers can sell a house also. But,
sure. Yeah. I'm not saying when I say usually, it means that a lot of the prospects have more than 3 numbers. But do we contact those? Usually not. Do we text those? Never.
Right.
RVM,
Okay.
RVM maybe. Let's back out a little bit just from RVM and go talk about just some data again. So can you talk about some sources, how you're pulling data, where you found data to be really good? I don't know if it's just the county or
The
tell us
more,
about
the
your best
more,
practices.
the more difficult the data is to collect, the better off it is. So a lot of services sell, I think you mentioned you pulled data from, I can't remember who, some of the prop stream.
One of them, yep. One of our sources.
So code violations in a lot of states are broken addresses. And we had to develop a method to take 123 Main Street and convert it into a property. So we can verify and get it that it's a vacant property. And then from within the system, we can attach the owner's name and address, mailing address. So that seems to be being able to go into a new market, pull broken data for code violations, and convert it into an RVM or direct mail list quickly. So that's where you can pull the data and get it before, a month before it's for sale on some of these bigger platforms.
Got it. And so when it comes to code violations, are you pulling stuff are you going very wide and pulling everything on the county website in terms of open, closed, like pending?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I look at it as, it's like a credit score. Somebody's got bad credit, they've messed up for 10 years. It's not like they just missed one car payment.
Yeah.
So if they have one problem, they're going to have others. And that's why I also don't really focus on a list. It's a combination of data. So we developed a system that allows to upload, we don't accept PDFs, but anything in a single line format, we can convert over to get a number. So that's, I guess, to go in line with what you were mentioning about the guy in Arizona, to be able to get ahead of people by months.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you're a fan of code violations, and I heard you say tax delinquents. Are you able to pull tax delinquents? I know in my home county, I think there's 1 or 2 other people here from my home county on this call. But where are you pulling those from? Because they were a real pain. I had to file a FOIA request, send $50 per year. They sent the thumb drive.
Each of them are different. So, I mean, what I would say is if you've already got it, that's who we're trying to work with. So I don't want to have to go out and get it. If you've already got it, being able to show somebody how to filter it is something that's good. So code violations, if you were to skip trace them, it costs money, right? At least 15 cents a piece. What we were looking at is how to take broken data that doesn't have a zip code and then convert it into hot zip codes. And then from there, see which ones those sold in the last 10 years prior to skip tracing it. So we take the whole big old county list and shrink it down to just the best ones so that you go from 10,000 leads down to 500. Then those 500 go to skip trace. So your cost is way down on having to buy data.
Yeah, so stacking it first and then skip tracing, right?
Yes, but filtering it by sales date to help narrow it. Are you following that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm hanging.
Yeah, so somebody that has a code violation that's owned the house for a year, you skip them.
Definitely. Okay, so where are you pulling that sold data from? Just public records, MLS, that kind of thing?
A combination and purchase data. So that was one of the cool things that we developed. So now we can get up to about literally 100,000 of these. We can scrub list at 100,000 per maybe 30 minutes.
Wow, that's wild. Hey, I just thought of something. I talked with one of my buddies in Investor Fuel is Michael Singletary, and he has this new skip tracing company called Skip Force.
I spoke to him 2 days ago.
Oh, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
well, I think he's mainly, that is all mobiles from what I understand.
It's not. I was disappointed to find out. So he can't tell you it's mobiles until the data comes back. So it's just like kind of like anybody else.
Got it. Okay.
We want to do the same thing of just, sending those 60% that don't have mobiles in for skip trace to see what, would come back. But we have a built-in skip trace also that we can roll and do the same thing.
Wow, really? You guys got a built-in skip trace?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Okay. So Jurgen just asked, what are the common names for the offices you're pulling tax delinquencies from?
I mean, I would have to just, everyone's a little different. So I would look up a specific, whatever I was looking for. So evictions list and go in and see what pops up plus the county and just go play through until you can find a source that's grabbable.
Okay. So dude, in Baltimore, what is the office here? I'm looking it up real quick. Baltimore County tax search. Dude, I will get you that info later on. I found it in Baltimore County about the office name, and I can even put you on with the person. But it was just like $50 a year to pull it in Baltimore County. So I'll definitely put you on with that later, dude. Okay. We have like 10 minutes left. So anyone with any questions, be sure to drop some below. We've talked about a few ways that you're pulling data. Are there any sources that maybe you could drop as, an insider secret here on things you're looking for now that you're working on? For instance, I don't know, some people are looking at some fire sale data or fire distress at their home. Like PropStream just came out with a few things. They do a lot of liens now, including tax liens. They're doing also like HOA liens inside there. They're also doing, what was the other one? I think they're doing some solds now. But there's a lot of new companies coming out with new niches and stuff like that. Is there anything you got your eye on that maybe everyone else should be too?
I think it's going back to the basics first, rather than chasing the flavor of the month.
I love it.
So if you look at any county and break it down to a zip code level, there are houses there that you wouldn't buy if they were given to you.
Yeah.
They're just some bad ones. So if you can identify, that's your core list. Any property that you stack and it's on 2 lists, basically your core list, plus any of these other, whatever you call, any additional lists, those are the ones to market to. So like vacancy is sold by a lot of people by an entire county. And we'd end up with houses that literally people would pay us money to take title. And we couldn't do anything with them, even so. I don't want that data. I don't want to text those people. I don't want to pay for skip tracing. So instead of going just as wide as you can, marketing, unless you have unlimited budgets, it's finding the houses you want and anybody that has a second, that shows up on a second list. So when you stack it, they're a property you want plus a problem. I see that as helpful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. Let's continue for just another minute in that direction. How are you targeting before you're even pulling lists then to keep those shit boxes out of your database, out of your buy box, right? So you don't target those with equal force and equal money as everyone else. How are you keeping the bad properties out and making sure to include the ones that you want?
So if you, like most people would start from square one, go into list source, and would identify properties that fit in their buyer's criteria. So, a 3, 3, 2, 3, 1, whatever it is, and they target a zip code and then do a sale date. That's the quickest scrub to find the houses that you would want to market to. So now all the other lists that come in from various places, if you stack it against them, they're either on that list or they're not. And if it's a house you end up purchasing, find out why it's not on your core list.
I love that. That's really good. I'm so glad you didn't say like something crazy, some new list. That would have been cool, but you're like, go back to the basics, which is really, really important. Just when you're building up this house, you got to have a really strong foundation, right? And I found that a lot of people don't. And even me, in the very beginning, I was building Frankenstein, just patching shit together, and eventually it doesn't scale.
Well, the problem is you have costs. So if you can just think about it as one zip code and then add 2, 3, it's the same thing. You add 1 county, 2, 3, you add 1 state, 2, 3. It's like if you're not scalable, the whole thing collapses.
Definitely.
So that's why I see people looking at, nationwide vacancy. It's like, oh, that's the dumbest list I've ever heard of.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look in Baltimore City, for instance, vacancy there. I mean, I think we have 27, 28,000 vacancies in Baltimore City, and probably 94% of those is stuff that I would not have any interest in whatsoever. And in fact, they're
Right.
knocking a lot of them down. That's a good point.
So being able to bring in, like I was saying, those exclusion lists, it's a reverse or a side stack. I don't even know what you call it, a blacklist. We built those in so that you could like pull recently listed properties and bounce it against, and that shuts down all marketing on whatever you're bringing in. So it's a way to stay focused on sustainable marketing rather than just trying to add 10,000 skip traces a month and, you know, blow it out of control on expanding too fast.
Yeah. And so are you really zooming in to certain markets by zip code? Is that like your main driver there, or is it?
Well, no, it's, if it works on a zip code level, you know, your whole pattern, your whole system, it'll work on 2 zip codes, it'll work on a county, it'll work on a state. So it's like it's scalable. But if you're just pulling random lists with, you know, if you pull a list once a year, that's not sustainable. Same thing as like if I get a lead from my church, that's not a business model. That was, you know, networking, great, but that's, you know, you can't grow that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. And so when it comes to pulling lists, you know, if you have one list in your home county, how often will you refresh that list? How often will you skip trace someone or attempt to skip trace someone again?
That's why we did the last sale date scrub, or what we're calling the hydration. So any data that you buy is only good for a month. So the vacancy status, the ownership, whatever it is really only good for any list you build is only valid for a month.
So are you going back to those original sources after another month and updating?
No, we can automate the scrubbing of it to see if any of them sold.
Got it. Okay.
So that's something that you can do whenever you want. You can do it once every 2 months, once every 6 months. Because the whole idea was, if we're automating sending out these RVMs, we're adding in, is after they work some bugs out, the same API for direct mail. So we'll be able to send direct mail and RVMs on automation, but you don't want to send all that waste to people that sold their house.
Absolutely.
So now we can scrub in the main system, and it filters out all the ones that sold, and now send to the marketing out correctly.
Okay. And so you've talked about a few times pairing RVM and direct mail, because the RVM obviously is for people who have mobiles. And then are you mailing everyone on that same list, or is it everyone just who doesn't have a mobile?
Right now it's both. So the first one would be people that don't have any phone number. And then the second would be, I'm looking down at a chart over here, looking down at people's landlines scored by zip codes. So your target zip codes, ListSource has that little hack you do to find out what the top 5 or 10 zip codes are. So if you have a big data set, you'd start so that you know that zip code 1 is that one will receive the direct mail. Also be the one that would be dialed first. That way you work through everything methodically. Got
it. Okay. That's all. I mean, you're looking at a chart probably like similar to mine. I have like a matrix, right, where there's zip codes, and then you got your marketing channels or whatever across, and you can see the order that you're going down in. It's just so much to keep track of, and that's where I struggle. So if you look at like a disc profile, I'm a DI. So as a D, I'm like a very hard driver, but very low follow through when it comes to the details. So for me, that's not really my zone. It's my zone to get the activity in, to outline it, and to put people in place. But how are you following through with that? Is it a lot of automation, or is it all manual stuff, or is that your superpower?
I built a system to accomplish all of this that we've talked about. So it's a platform that you would push your data into and can buy a single piece of number, like data. So you can buy just the name, or you can buy the skip trace, or you can update the existing record. So like most people would go to ListSource and buy a list and bring it back. So you have, 1,000 numbers or 1,000 properties. This is the other way around. We go out for just one.
Awesome. That's really cool. And so if anyone watching this now is more interested, if they're interested in talking with you further, hiring you to do some of this kind of stuff, how do they get in touch with you?
Facebook's the easiest way.
Cool. Okay. I mean, you got some really good ideas going on, and this is exactly why I started this group, because I wouldn't call any of your services or anything like that mainstream. I haven't, besides I know Don, and Don's led me to you. But besides that, you hear of 5 or 6 companies out there who do services. However, I know there's so many more lurking in the shadows out there that don't even necessarily want the attention. However, being able to mastermind them around like this is awesome, just to see the possibilities. When I go to masterminds and events, one of the biggest things that I get out of it is just being able to see something that in real life, right? Talk to someone who's like, I did that. And now you can see that it's a real thing, and sudden barriers are broken down and you can go attack it. So I think this is incredible, man. This is really cool.
All right. Well, man, thanks. I'd love to show it to you some other time. I know that we're at the 4:30 mark now.
Yes, indeed. All right. Give everyone here one last piece of advice, whether it's around data, RVM, SMS, whatever it may be. Drop one gold nugget on everybody here.
Stay consistent. I think that bad marketing is better than no marketing. So it's getting marketing out.
Good. I like it, man. All right, guys, I hope this was really helpful to you today. And staying true to sticking with a half an hour. We are underground, but this elevator is going up. If you got any value out of this today, invite some of your friends to the group. It's a free group. The more we grow it, the better it's going to get. And then also in the comments from today's thread in Facebook, let me know what you really liked about this. Let me know what you want to talk about more, what you want to talk about less. This feedback's really going to shape our future calls. It's super important to me. So, and if you want to be featured on a call, have a conversation like Mason and I are right now, please also let me know that. I'd love to talk about anything lead gen. So Mason, thank you so much for your time, my man.
All right. Well, thank you.
Great meeting you, and we'll definitely talk again.
All right.
Guys, thanks for showing up today. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Elevator's going up. Bye-bye.